Hello, everyone. My name is William Knox, and along with Darius Ferguson, Stefano Janot, Jonathan Finley, and Michelle Taylor, we'll be presenting our business briefing on Chapter 16, Leadership Ethics. Leadership ethics goes beyond making the right decisions. It focuses on how leaders influence others through integrity, fairness, and accountability. Throughout this presentation, we'll examine the key principles of ethical leadership, explore current research, discuss some of the challenges leaders face when applying ethical principles, and evaluate whether this approach remains relevant in today's workplace. Here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. I'll begin by providing a brief summary of leadership ethics and the core principles presented by Northouse. Next, our team will discuss important leadership studies that helped shape ethical leadership, followed by recent research that expands the theory. We'll then examine some of the criticisms and limitations of the ethical leadership approach before concluding our assessment of how practical and relevant it is in today's workplace and global business environment. With that, let's begin by looking at the foundations of leadership ethics. Leadership ethics focuses on the moral principles and values that guide how leaders make decisions and interact with others. According to Northouse, ethical leadership is about more than achieving organizational goals. It requires leaders to act with integrity while considering the well-being of employees, customers, and other stakeholders. Northouse identifies 5 core principles of ethical leadership: respecting others, serving others, showing justice, being honest, and building community. Together, these principles help leaders create trust, promote fairness, and foster an environment where employees feel valued and supported. Ultimately, ethical leadership is not simply about making the right decision. It's about consistently modeling ethical behavior that inspires others to do the same. When leaders prioritize integrity alongside performance, they strengthen organizational culture, improve employee commitment, and build long-term organizational success.
I'm going to review the literature for ethical leadership over time. The conversation began around 1978 when Burns drew a line between transactional leaders and those who exchange rewards for compliance, and transformational leaders, leaders who appeal to the people's higher moral purpose. This was the first time ethics was treated as a core leadership function rather than a personality trait. For business, this meant organizations began not asking what leaders produced, but how they produced it and why. In the 90s, the focus shifted inward. Greenleaf's servant leadership model took hold, and research began connecting ethical behavior to organizational culture itself. The argument was simple and powerful. If you wanted ethical organization, you need leaders whose values shape the environment every day, not just some policy on the wall. Businesses started embedding ethics into mission statements and leadership development programs. Then came corporate scandal. Enron, WorldCom, Arthur Andersen. These weren't failures of strategy. They were failures of ethical leadership. The research community responded directly. In 2005, Brown and Savino developed the Ethical Leadership Scale, giving organizations a measurable tool to assess leader behavior for the first time. For businesses, this was a turning point. Ethics was no longer an abstract, it was something you could evaluate, develop, and hold people accountable for. The 2010s brought rigor. Researchers began formally linking emotional intelligence to ethical leadership, showing that leaders who could regulate and read emotions were significantly more likely to make fair, transparent decisions. Social learning theory emerged as the dominant explanation. Employees learn what is acceptable by watching their leaders. If the leader cuts corners, so does the team. If the leader is honest under pressure, that standard spreads. The most recent evidence is the most actionable for your organization. In 2025, an integrative review that analyzed 124 peer-reviewed studies published between 2020 and 2024 found that ethical leadership consistently improved employee engagement, job satisfaction, and trust, and reduces burnout and counterproductive behavior. Critically, emotional intelligence was identified as a top mediating factor. Leaders who combine ethical values with strong people skills measurably perform better in their teams, even in hybrid and remote environments. The research is clear. and consistent over 50 years. Ethical leadership is not a soft skill. It's a performance driver. Organizations with ethically strong leaders see higher retention, stronger team cohesion, and a better long-term outcomes. The question is not whether your organization can afford to invest in ethical leadership development. The research says you can't afford not to.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Finley, and I'll be discussing the emerging research topic as it relates to leadership ethics in the age of artificial intelligence. As Northouse explains in Chapter 16, ethical leadership is more about than achieving results. It's about using influence responsibly. That message is even more relevant today as artificial intelligence becomes part of everyday business decisions. Employers have a responsibility to ensure AI is used ethically by being transparent, protecting employee privacy, reducing bias, and keeping people accountable for important decisions. Northouse 5-point principles, respect, service, justice, honesty, and building community, provide a strong framework for leading through these changes. Recent research by Wang et al. Found that employees are much more willing to adopt AI when they trust their leaders and believe the technology is being implemented fairly and responsibly. McKinsey and Company also reports that AI adoption is happening faster than many organizations expected, making ethical leadership and employee communication more important than ever. As we move toward a more automated future, success won't be defined by how much AI an organization uses, but by how ethically it uses it. Leaders who balance innovation with trust, fairness, and accountability will build stronger organizations and a more engaged workforce.
Hi, my name is Darius Ferguson, and the slide I will be presenting is the criticisms of leadership ethics and where it breaks down. Northouse states that the study of leadership ethics is in an early stage of development and lacks research to substantiate the theories behind it. The previous publications of leadership ethics are highly influenced by individuals' personal opinions and their views of the world, and have not been tested using traditional quantitative or qualitative research methods. Also, the views of leadership ethics are primarily based on the views of the Western world. There is currently little work incorporating other cultures into the study of leadership ethics. Additionally, there are generational differences in ethical perspectives. Millennials make up over 75% of the workforce and view ethical leadership differently. Millennials are more individualistic and extrinsic. Ethics may not appeal to them as much as outside reward will. To conclude, ethical perspectives can change quickly, therefore, ethical research will struggle to be up to date and relevant. Estefano will be presenting his slide next.
Hi, I'm Stefano Jamil, and will cover assessment of leadership ethics in today's workforce. Our group believes the leadership ethics approach is extremely valuable for today's workforce because organizations operate in environments that demand transparency, accountability, and trust. Northouse argues that ethical leaders respect others, serve others, act justly, remain honest, and build community. These principles are especially important in diverse and globally connected workplaces where leaders must balance business objectives with employee and stakeholder expectations. Recent research shows that trust and ethical leaderships are increasingly important as organizations navigate AI, workforce transformation, social responsibility, and although ethical decision making can be challenging because of culture and personal values differ, the leadership ethics approach provides practical guidance that helps leaders make decisions that benefit both organizations and society. Therefore, our group views this approach as highly relevant, practical, and essential for modern leadership. Thank you.